Huge announcements, huge contract news, and a new Legends deal being signed in the WWE. We're going to talk about it right here on the Ango Show. Yes. Welcome back to the Ango Show, ladies and gentlemen. I want to kick things off with WWE. Jesse Ventura, we saw him at Raw just a couple of weeks ago, and now it appears that the relationship between him and WWE is a much more positive one. So he spoke about this publicly, and I definitely want to talk about this because he did an interview with Chris Van Vliet. He says, my relationship with the WWE now has now much improved. We are on the verge right now. I can say this. The contracts have been written and contracts have been agreed upon. All it requires is 2 signatures, one from them and one from me, and I will be back with the Legends contract. In terms of the time frame, this is fairly quickly. And he also says that time is money, which I also agree. And look, honestly, this is good stuff, man. Like Jesse Ventura, obviously him and WWE had their falling out. Now WWE has a new regime. And it seems like WWE has just been really vocal about, repairing relationships. And when I say that they're being vocal about repairing relationships, it's not them talking publicly about things, but it's about them actually doing things with the actions, right? And actions always speak louder than words. And in the case of Jesse Ventura, like this is a guy where you might like him, you might hate him, whatever, but this is a guy that a lot of people did not expect to see back in WWE. I think the last time he was ever on an episode of WWE was like 2010, 2011, or 2012. It's 2024. So obviously a lot of time has been passed, and new regime, Triple H, it just seems like WWE has been very good about trying to repair those broken relationships. And you never say never in the wrestling business. If CM Punk could come back and do business with the WWE, I think that pretty much says it all, because WWE and CM Punk, I never thought we would ever see the return. And obviously with WWE, Jesse Ventura having a Legends deal, all that really means is that WWE is going to be able to do merchandise. They might have him for some events. They might have him do signings. They might have him do some appearances here and there. But at the most, you're not going to see Jesse Ventura in a WWE ring wrestling anytime or anything like that. But you might see him from time to time. And that's the cool thing about Legends contracts is that, WWE, it's like having that legacy clause where it's like, hey, like you were with us. We're going to utilize you in some fashion. You're going to get paid. We're going to get paid. It's mutually beneficial. And for Jesse Ventura and WWE to come together and sign a deal, I just think the deal itself is cool, but it's just good to see that WWE has been righting wrongs. It's not the same WWE as it was in the past. Let's talk about ESPN and AEW, because AEW Collision and AEW Grand Slam Australia will now be able to be viewed on ESPN in Australia. And this is really dope. I'm excited about this announcement because we often talk about global expansion. We know that AEW has had that TV deal in the past, but now if you live in Australia, which I actually understand by looking at my analytics, I do have viewership from Australia. So if you are somebody from Australia, I'm going to assume this is a really good thing, right? The ability to have access to another AEW show, obviously a great thing. To have access to AEW Grand Slam Australia, it's another great thing. And let's just talk about that for a second. The stadium that AEW Grand Slam Australia is taking place in could do, I think, about 50,000 seats. So we're going to see how big the market is for AEW in Australia. And look, I know some people just want to hate watch AEW, but Tony Khan, even before pro wrestling, was always an analytics guy. Like he literally owns a company for analytics and stuff. So like this is a guy that understands analytics. I don't think Tony Khan and Kosha Irby are going to be doing a stadium show in Australia if there isn't a market for it in Australia. Now, if AEW does 50,000 seats and they sell it out completely, that would be an amazing thing. If AEW does, let's say 20 to 30,000, that's still an amazing thing. Like I think a lot of people, I know everybody saw the 80,000 seats for Wembley Stadium the first time, and they're like, well, that's kind of the expectation, but that's just simply not how it works. Different markets, different times, different prices, different storylines. I mean, there's a million different factors that will dictate whether people show up or not. But the thing is, in order to get people in seats, you have to have a television deal. AEW already had a television deal with ESPN in Australia, but now you have to give them access to more. And I feel like for AEW, giving them access to more is ultimately just going to lead to more benefits for them. I also think it's important that we acknowledge the fact that with AEW, they are in a situation where they are still growing as a company. And they are doing some pretty aggressive stuff. I mean, you got to think about it. Like, it is pretty aggressive to do another international stadium show. They're doing it in an area in Australia where WWE has not been, so that perhaps can help. I don't know if a lot of people from America would be traveling to Australia, but I would imagine that AEW could do pretty well out there. I don't know if I have a prediction for how many tickets they'll actually sell. I don't know if I have a prediction necessarily for how successful AEW will be 10 years from now. It's a very aggressive approach, but in order to get there, you got to have good TV distribution. Everything I've heard from my viewers or from social media is that ESPN in Australia is a great place for AEW to be distributed. I can't imagine this being a bad thing whatsoever. Very interestingly enough, Swerve Strickland appears to have signed a new deal with the company. Fightful Select has reported that Swerve Strickland's previous deal, signed in 2022, was set to run through next March. However, both sides, Swerve and AEW, both apparently agreed that he had outgrown the deal and the terms of that deal with his new rise. And basically, AEW wanted to tie him down and proposed a new deal to him. But what's really crazy about this news is that per the report, Swerve is believed to have signed a multi-year deal that will see him remain in the promotion until at least 2028. And in addition to that, a source in AEW noted that it is considered one of the biggest contracts in the company's history. A company that has brought in Okada, Bryan Danielson, Kenny Omega, Adam Copeland. There's a lot of big names in this company, guys. Swerve Strickland has proved to be a top guy in AEW. You don't pay top guy money for a guy who is not top guy worthy. Swerve Strickland carried it. He got the company back on track after the Adam Cole MJF situation. I think we all saw what that was. I think we all just need to acknowledge that Swerve is truly a top guy, and getting paid for it is a good thing. I don't understand why anybody could be mad about Swerve Strickland getting paid. Now, look, I don't have access to the AEW books. I don't have access to revenue reports or anything like that. So I'm going to be very clear here. How much is Tony Khan spending on Swerve? I don't know. I don't really care to pocket watch. But in the case of Swerve being considered one of the largest or biggest contracts in the company's history, I can't imagine why somebody would look at that as a negative. Like, I think that would be a good thing. Talent getting paid is a great thing. And that's really what's most important about it all. So I'm going to leave it at that. I think it's a good thing that Swerve is getting paid. I think it's a good thing that AEW views him as a top guy. He did a lot of great things. I'm very curious to see how they book him now that he doesn't have the world title. But I feel like 2024 has been a lot better for AEW, and a lot of that should be given credit to Swerve Strickland. So ultimately, pretty cool stuff. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the Ango Show.